Here we are. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Am I echoey? I'm not sure. Um, my name is Travis. There's no one watching. Please come. There's over 35 people signed up at this point. Oh yeah, they're here. Okay, good.
There.
There's a few people here.
Well, I can't see anybody but you and Clay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's 5 watching at least. So welcome everyone. My name is Travis. I am the owner of Launch Mission Creative. I'm a graphic designer. Wrote my own children's book, Ada and the Helpers, a couple of years ago and released it last year. And that kind of got me into the whole scene of self-publishing children's books. And it's been really exciting to get into that. And that's how I met Katie and Clay. I'm so excited to have these two here to talk about book covers. Such an important topic when it comes to self-publishing any book really, but especially children's books, I think. And yeah, so just to give a little background, right now I'm running a Kickstarter for my second book, Never Ever Build a Blanket Fort. And so if you go in and back that book for any amount, you'll basically have a raffle to win the newest book from Clay and the newest book from Katie. Now, is it possible to get those books signed if I order them from you guys?
Absolutely.
Cool?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So signed books from Katie and Clay. Thank you so much. Now, I've been promised a party today, so I've got my party shirt on, my party lights on. We're ready to go.
I got party lights today.
I look like a mom today.
Yeah.
Katie, let's start with you. Give us a little background about you and how you got into children's books and just your personal life as well.
Well, how much time do you have?
I don't know. Clay's on his lunch break.
Just how many minutes you have.
Let's get this.
So this is baby number 5, and I wrote and illustrated my book. I only have one book while I was pregnant with her, and I finished it 3 days before she was born. That's when I ran my Kickstarter, and it was super stressful. So I don't envy what you're going through right now. I am a self-taught graphic designer. I've been working in Photoshop primarily for 6 or 7 years now. And I recently opened up a new, what is going to soon be a chain, as Clay pointed out, of mini bookstores called the Itty Bitty Book Nook. And my first one is in Colorado, and I'm opening my second location in Tennessee on Mother's Day weekend. So, we just moved to Colorado from the DC area 6 weeks ago. We're temporarily in an Airbnb, but we're closing on our new house in 8 days.
Sounds like a great time to start a new store.
Oh,
In 2 states.
It's fine. I mean, if anyone knows that I'm not quite mentally stable, it's you, Clay. So, it's fine. Everything's fine. Like, I mean, where everything's burning.
It's the best part about you, Kate.
Stable.
Yeah, right.
You're supposed to disagree with me, friend. My husband hasn't learned that one either. He's my 6th child. I should have mentioned him. He's a good dude. He's the one that backs me up with all my crazy ideas. So now, please, Clay, it's your turn. You have like 10 kids too, right?
I got 4, so I'm one short of you guys.
Guys, I got to catch up. I only have 2. Come on.
Yeah, come on. So yeah, we have 4 kids. The youngest one is in that photo here, and there's 3 other photos on my walls here. But anyway, so our kids are between 13. Huh?
Somebody has a favorite.
That's right. So our kids are between 13 and 6 now, and so this whole publishing thing started because I just love children's books, and we would go to the library and get a ton of books with our kids, and I think I would enjoy them as much or more than they would. And I thought, it'd be fun to kind of write maybe a book for each kid and maybe get it illustrated. And it was really just kind of going to be a hobby side thing. And then got connected with the indie author community on Facebook primarily, and started to actually learn publishing, and then did this one, or sitting on the shelf right there, is my first book, Me, Gene, the Locust Tree. And so that was for my son. And it didn't sell particularly well, but I thought it came out well and kind of got me into the industry. And then the second book, This I Know, has exploded. So that's all of a sudden this is a second full-time job basically, and then getting to know people like Travis and Katie and so many others, doing work, doing some consulting, doing design work, doing some logos. That's another one of my specialties is logos. And so anyway, it's been a whole new world that I really wasn't anticipating or looking for, but it's been a lot of fun. So we live near Chicago. We're outside of in the Chicago suburbs in Wheaton, and this is where my wife and I both grew up. So we have deep roots here. So.
And can you go a little deeper into what it takes to make a book explode, please? I think we'd all like.
Yeah, I'll tell you that as soon as I figure out what happened. So, so
I get bestie privileges, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's all in the cover.
Yeah, well, it's in kind of what I've tried to figure out, and what's hard as I'm working on subsequent books now, is trying to figure out how all the magic kind of comes together to make a book that's really marketable. And a big part of it is writing to the market and writing something that the market is interested in, but then just crafting a really strong book, and that's design, but it is illustrations, it is a strong manuscript, and all of those pieces come together. I think that's the goal. And so trying to catch lightning in a bottle a second time, I'm scared to death, but we'll see whether I'm able to do it.
You're gonna be fine.
Yeah. She keeps telling me that, but
Fan base now. I'm the leader of the groupies.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's kind of what I've discovered as I've gotten into it is just how involved the design is in every aspect of publishing. That's kind of why I started this whole series of interviews, because it's involved with the editing side and the printing and every part of self-publishing is related to the design somehow. Tell me a little bit more about your books specifically and how they were inspired or what made you write that specific book.
Ladies first, Clay.
Ladies first.
For me, again, it was really for the kids. The book ideas, I think, have the Me, Gene, the Locust Tree one behind me. That was kind of a allegory is too strong a word, but it basically kind of a little symbolic story about a tree and how the tree kind of watches us age. What happened in our case is actually my kids are growing up in the same house that I grew up in. So I bought my childhood home from my father. And so we've moved into the same house that I grew up in with the same trees and all of that kind of thing. And so I just kind of got reminiscing about how these trees that I grew up with are now taller and bigger and wiser, right, than they were when I was a kid. And now they're watching the second generation grow up. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind that book. This I Know, we've sung Jesus Loves Me to our kids every night before bed. And in the second book, This I Know, is inspired by that. And it was one of those things where the song talks about Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so, but for our kids, we've always tried to encourage them to look at all the world around them and see how much there is love all around them in that regard. And so so the book sprang from that, and it really seems to have hit a nerve and been embraced very well. So that's where those came from. Katie, all you.
I actually wanted to get rich, so
yeah,
wrong choice of occupation.
Great reason.
So buy any books actually is not totally a lie. my first idea was to write an ABC book. I was like, people buy ABC books. Like everybody's got to learn how to say the alphabet.
Right.
And then I wrote a really horrible rhyming ABC book, and it just kind of snowballed into. Then I bought this. I don't know if you can see it. This Wacom tablet here.
Yeah.
I wanted to up my graphic design skills, and I lost my daughter. Then I figured out I could illustrate on here, and then my very sweet friend Cindy Grant was stupid enough, brave enough, but also stupid enough. I hope she's here and she can agree. Had to deal with me through this first book I illustrated, which was her book, Oodles of Noodly Noodles. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do my own book this time. But I had no good ideas. And then I was telling my husband one night over dinner that I feel like a fraud. I'm like supposed to be creative and I have no creative ideas. And then it was thundering. And I don't know, my kids were freaking out at the table and I was like, the sky's just roaring, guys, kind of chill out. And then later that night I told them this story. It's some variation of it at bedtime, and they thought it was hilarious. And I was like, okay, well that makes sense.
There we go.
But I tortured myself trying to write it in rhyme. And that in itself was a whole process. And then I illustrated it, and then I needed to figure out how in that world to afford it. The print run. And it just, like you, it just snowballed into, this is my job now. And now, Cindy's book was the first cover I designed. And since then, I think I've designed 40 or 50, maybe. I don't know. And so, in that, I really have no idea where she went. In that, I have started doing research, and I read up about, the psychological, sort of what happens when somebody at a cover and what kind of connection they have to it and what kind of makes those types of things, marketing specifically, work. And you're basically taking a billboard and putting it into a book form. My background is in marketing, so it all just kind of fell into place. And that was a very, off the wall tangent. I'm sorry, Travis, I didn't directly answer your question, but it was just, I don't know. I sometimes I just find myself on a road. I don't know how I got there, and I just roll with it. And that's where I'm at.
But Clay, would you agree that pretty much every creative feels like a fraud at some point?
Oh, that imposter syndrome is strong, and it's hard to get past that. And even now, like you get the sense that, okay, I have one book that's selling really well, but that doesn't mean I still struggle with that imposter syndrome. Like, was this just a lucky fluke? And so that's still sits with you. And I think for every creative in every creative field. And so you just have to push past that, and you have to trust that you got something worthwhile. I think it is worth pushing. What I've tried to do for myself is push myself to do it better. Cause like writing in rhyme, that was the first time I had written truly in rhyme was with my second book, with This I Know. And man, I wrote it, and then I had a rhyme editor kind of review the manuscript, and she, there's red ink everywhere. And all of a sudden I realized that this is a lot tougher to get actually strong meter. And at first, I kind of had the resistance, like, oh, you don't need perfect meter. But then I realized you really almost do, so that your reader can not stumble over the book as they're reading it. And so just right. Yeah. And then trying to say exactly what you want to say, and get it to flow naturally, and use kid-friendly words and phrasing. It's hard. And so it's been a fun creative challenge, but it has not been easy. And
I guess I should introduce my book as well. Ada and the Helpers is my first book. You can see the thumbnail back there. It was inspired by my daughter, who was born deaf, and she got cochlear implants within the first year of her life. And she's doing fantastic, learning English and Norwegian. I'm from North Carolina, but we live in Norway. And she's learning sign languages for both countries as well. So just doing great. But the book was inspired by her, and the main character also has cochlear implants. It also teaches the ASL alphabet. So Yeah, that was, but it's also written in rhyme, so I know exactly where you're coming from, Clay. That was difficult.
Man.
I wish more
Yeah.
people knew how important it is to write a good meter.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to write a rhyming book that's not in good meter, it completely ruins the experience for the reader. It's almost better to have it. Well, it is better to have it not rhyme at all than to have poor rhyme or poor meter and poor rhyming. So it's good. You guys are both really good. You're both really good at writing in verse. Nikki had to save me at the very end there.
Did you?
Yeah, it was like, girlfriend, I need to swoop in and save the day here before you go to print.
Yeah.
Thank goodness she did, because my book is better for it. But it really, I bring that up because I think that it's really important to remember that there are people that do this professionally. There are people who do covers professionally. There's people who do editing professionally, and all those people in a traditionally published book would come together as a team and create this book that is, it looks like it's all done from one brain, but it really is just a team of experts having done their part. And a lot of indie authors really want to take, their one role and spread it over their entire book.
Right.
And I realize I'm being totally a hypocrite because I literally did everything except for the editing with my own book. But I had the background before I started to do children's books. I think that's the only difference. But I think that's why these sort of conversations, Travis, are going to be really valuable for people, is so that they can kind of step outside of their mental block and be okay with asking for help and okay hiring professionals to help them with different people of their book. In this case, cover design. And I know that Clay and I are both like totally jam-packed with our schedule and not currently taking new clients. So, but I hope that this will be helpful nonetheless. And I don't mean to derail you. I know that Clay and I can both be long-winded, me especially. And I know that we want to add value to what people are watching for. So how can we support what you're trying to do here?
Was that a rhetorical question, or are you asking me?
No, I don't know. I guess I have the tendency to completely derail anybody's efforts. And so I'm trying to be a better person here, Travis, and make sure I stay centered.
I appreciate that. Clay mentioned that there was a slideshow that you guys had done for a previous interview like this.
Yeah.
And Clay, is it easier for you to just go through that slideshow, or should I ask the questions that I had, or what do you think?
This is your show, Travis. Whatever you.
I am completely flexible.
Well, I think it's. Sorry, I'm trying to.
I have it here.
Well, I'm realizing that sharing the screen is going to completely cover the screen, but I can upload the slideshow to StreamYard here. I didn't realize I could do that, and so
okay.
So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll. Ow! You made too big of a file, Katie. It's like the size limit is 50 megabytes. So yeah. Okay.
I'm not actually tech savvy. I just pretend to be.
That's right.
So before we get into that, for whoever's watching, if you click directly, if you're on my website watching, if you click directly on the video, it should take you to YouTube, and that's where you can leave comments. I don't think leaving a comment right on my website is really going to help anything. So you have to go directly into YouTube to do that. And we will have question and answer afterwards if there are any questions. So, yeah.
All right. So let me try this one more time.
Trying to put her to sleep. This is working. I got it in my calendar at 3 p.m. where my husband's off work and not at noon. So forgive me for having kids here. Okay.
It's all good. I see it now, Clay. I'll add that in.
Cool.
Yeah, so is it showing up for you? Okay.
Yeah, we are there.
Pretty good PowerPoint there.
I'm not going to be able to see you guys because I've got to keep my whole screen displaying this slideshow, but I can hear you, so we should just be able to progress through this.
We might let you know if you have like a booger or something.
Please do.
Actually, Travis, now that you mentioned it, he does kind of have a booger right there.
I'll take care of that. So, or if anybody shows up behind me, let me know.
Yeah.
Kids are showing up behind me. We have a problem. I'm at the office. So, I guess I can start by introing this. Yeah, Katie and I have done this a couple times. She and I connected. Well, Katie invited me to help administer a Facebook group on cover design, which a number of you are probably part of, and Travis has been an active member there. And so that's how we first kind of got connected. But then we've been doing some consulting independently, and then I've done a couple of these webinars on cover design and trying to share our expertise. So this is a presentation that Katie, I'm going to give her the credit because she put 90% of this together, and but we've used it previously. So anyway, the idea here is creating a book cover that sells, which is challenging. These are, just to give you guys an idea, these are covers that Katie and I have designed or consulted with. So anyway, just to let you know that there is hopefully some ability behind our claims. I'll just give you a quick review of that.
Making it till we make it play.
What's that?
Make it till you make it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Back to that whole that imposter thing. So I'm I'm a self-taught designer as well, and just kind of learned it doing web design and logo design to begin with, and have just picked it up over the past number of years. But that's part of it, is that there are principles we can communicate that you can learn. So even if you're not a professional designer, by applying some of these principles, you can craft a pretty good cover for your book. And so there's not always the need to. It depends on. Some people have an eye for it. Some people don't, and so that's a matter of knowing your strengths. Like, I can't illustrate a thing, and so I never will do that.
Yeah, but to that, you can always double check whether or not you actually possess the eye, because some people think they have the eye and they don't have the eye.
Right.
By popular opinion. And that's why our group, the cover critique group, is so valuable, because you can post your stuff there and get some, important feedback that you need to hear, whether you want to or not, right?
Yeah, it's not always easy feedback, but I think it is important, and we try to be as kind but honest as possible, because we don't,
and I try to remember to participate these days. I'm sorry, Clay. It was like, hey, let's make a cover critique group, and then I abandoned them.
Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of things going on our plates, but thankfully Travis and many others there have been very active, and that's been helpful to keep the conversations going. And I've been very thankful for how that community has developed. But so here, your cover really has one purpose. I mean, we can get idealistic about this, but really the truth is the cover is to sell your book. And that sounds crass, or, what about the art, but really it's to attract a reader. It's to give them a glimpse of what's going on in your book, to pique their interest, so that they say, I really want that book, and I want, it was a book that I'm interested in. They want to pick it up, flip through it. They want to buy it for them and their kids. And so that really is the purpose of the cover.
It is its own billboard, basically.
Right. Exactly. Right. And a lot of times it is the only, at least it's the first thing, when you talk about a sales funnel where you start at the top and you kind of work your customer down through the different stages. The cover, if they blow past the cover and they never click through to your product page, or they never pick up the book off the shelf and flip through it, you've lost them. And so really the cover is the first and only entry point, And so whatever you wrote, nice blurb that you wrote on the back of the book, well, nobody's going to see that if they aren't intrigued by the cover. So.
And that Amazon ads you're paying for, nobody clicks on your thumbnail.
Right, precisely. So, and you have so little space and time to grab their attention. The cover design is really critical. So, here's some things that, Katie, I don't know if you want to walk us through this, so I can
Sure. I know that when we did this before, we took up too much time. So
Yeah, so we can kind of fly through this, but
so I don't want to. I know it's late for Travis. So we don't want to hold him up all night. So
Don't
really,
worry about me.
when we're planning our covers, it really starts, as early as when you're writing the manuscript. I mean, you really need to start thinking about it then. What are you trying to communicate with your book? What is the moral of your story? What do you need to communicate on your cover that will let people know what your book is about? So really identifying what you want to communicate in your cover is step one. I don't even remember what these are. So
yeah, so I'll keep adding it.
surprise for me. Yes. So what feeling do you want to convey? For my book cover, I wanted to convey fear. I wanted people to know that this was about a fear of thunderstorms. And so on the cover, I have a dark, stormy sky. I have, dark colors, and there's a mood there that is conveyed, and a feeling that is conveyed in my cover. For Clay's cover, his cover has a very warm and fuzzy, all-encompassing, like, love feeling. Like, this is what I know. I mean, you did. I don't know how to. My brain's not connecting the dots today. I don't really feel so good. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, it really gives you that peaceful, all-knowing sort of feeling from his cover when you look at it. So identifying the feeling you want to convey and exactly what you want to communicate are important to planning your cover, and then conceptualizing your composition, meaning, make sure that, having enough space for your title, making sure that the illustration, what the illustration is not an afterthought. Everything about your illustration really needs to be well thought through. So I can tell you with my own book, the stance that my main character has, standing on the rock and looking, he's looking like he's going to face his fear. That's his expression. And so while it's subtle, and most people who are looking at my cover wouldn't identify that right away, it's subtle enough that you know that it's about fear, you know that it's a heavy feeling, but you also know that there's some light behind that, and that he's going to face his fear. And I'm very redundant. Plan your illustrations, and then how can you communicate with your buyer? These are just all things that you really need to think through before you start to work on your cover. Okay, so when you were thinking about how to communicate with your buyer, what is it about your book that would appeal to a greater audience, that would make them open your book or pick it up or click on your link or whatever? What is it about your book? For me, I believed it was facing your fear, thunderstorms, and dinosaurs, because there's dinosaurs in my book. So I wanted to make sure that I'm communicating all of those things on my cover so that at a glance, someone knows that there's dinosaurs, this is about storms, and then about facing your fears. And you do that in a millisecond. So you have to make sure that you can communicate all of these things with your buyer, and identifying how to do that before you even begin is important. So it can just be a list of things that that you really want to make sure that your cover encompasses, before you begin. It can be that simple, planning your cover. Anything you want to add to that, Clay?
Yeah, I would just say there's different approaches to this. They're all leaning towards some sort of generating some sort of response from the buyer or the reader, where maybe it's just kind of like, as you said, with my book, it's kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's just the sense of this, young girl standing in a field and just awed by the wonder of the world. For your new book, Travis, there's this curiosity, like, never build a blanket for it. Why? And so you're trying to get a sense of curiosity and a little bit of danger or suspense going on there. And so it's a different feeling, but hopefully it's capturing the reader's interest, because they want to know, well, what is it? What's going to happen? What's the drama that's yeah. And so so there's different responses that you can go for, but the one thing you want to do is generate a response, and usually an emotional one on the part of the reader, so that they want to know, so they have no no excuse not to open your book, that they want to see what's going to happen next and see what the book's about. So
Mhm.
You have a great point. Travis's new book has a great way of piquing your curiosity of what's going to happen.
yeah,
That the negative, I know that's not actually negative, but the negative never do or don't do, or this
Right.
book sucks, or the book with the worst book ever, or the worst writing. Those covers really pull you in, and they make you want to click on it. It's clickbait. If you think about how people work, I think it's a great title. So that's something that wasn't in here. Is your title is not a light decision.
Right.
Your title is probably the most important decision aside from conceptualizing and designing your book cover. If you could have a great book cover, but if your title is not interesting at all, then again you lose them. So Travis has a great book title.
Yeah.
That was and both of you know the struggle that I went through for that cover, coming up with the right illustration, because I didn't want to give away any, the ending or any secrets in the story, but at the same time, it was difficult to really illustrate that title. Never do this. Why never build a blanket for it? So that was a challenge.
Right.
So I guess just what's the balance, or do you have an answer? What's the balance there between giving away the story and getting the interest of the buyer? What do you think?
I had the same struggle with mine, and I'm not sure. I don't mean to jump in here, Clay. I didn't mean if you wanted to talk. I'm sorry.
No.
I had the same struggle. I wanted the dinosaurs being the source of the roaring in the sky to be a surprise, but I also wanted the buyer, who's not necessarily the reader, to know that there was dinosaurs in the book. And so I think that I don't know if you know this or if you remember my cover top of your head, but there's a dinosaur tail on it.
Yeah.
And I did that intentionally so that at a glance somebody might say, "Oh, there's a tail. I think it's a dinosaur tail," without actually having to come out and say it. So I don't have a good answer for you, but I do understand the struggle, and it is there's a delicate balance between giving away too much and nothing at all, and maybe not reaching your target audience. I do think that it's helpful to remember that, like I said, the buyer is not necessarily the reader. And so giving a nod to your buyer that, hey, this is what's going to happen. And remember, your audience is, 3 to 6 year olds in most cases for us. They maybe wouldn't put that together, but your buyer would. So if you think about it that way, I think it helps show the answer a little more easily.
Yeah. I think it depends too on the type of book that you have. Like, if the book has more of a story arc with a point of conflict, you don't want to give away the resolution. So you want to hint at the conflict without giving away the resolution. With my book, there isn't actually really a story arc. It's more of a series of pages, kind of a repetitive theme, looking at different aspects of the world around us, and so that for that there's not something I can kind of give away. I'm not giving away the ending as such, and so I didn't have that point of conflict. So it sometimes depends on the kind of book that you're writing, and that feeds into the title as well, and how you choose to title it. Where for me, I was more setting a mood for a book like both of yours. You're really wanting to hint at the core conflict without giving away the resolution. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's good.
Got
a little dinosaur there.
Yeah, it's really stealing your thunder here, Clay. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
This is what I mean about being redundant. I think we realized when we went through this before that it's a little bit too redundant, but this just gives you some more to think about with the things that we just discussed. So what I would recommend is just taking a screenshot of this to trigger, some thoughts, and when you're starting to plan for your cover. And I can go through these, but I don't think it would be worth everyone's time. But please just take a screenshot or take a picture with your phone, and then you can refer back to this later
Yep.
to help you sort of start that process. Does that work for you, Claire? Do you want to go?
Yep. No, I don't have it. Yeah, I think we've touched on this, so I'm leaving it up a few seconds. But all right, your time is up. There we go. All right. And this again, I think we're touching on the similar.
I do want to just touch on the one part. Which part of your story will sell your book?
Yeah.
That I think is something that you really need to do some market research and figure that out. So what I thought would sell my book is not what's selling my book. What's selling my book was something that I didn't fully understand at the time, and that I think I probably could have if I didn't cut the corner and not do the research I'm recommending that you do. So I thought that the dinosaurs would be my biggest selling point. Unfortunately, most people believe that dinosaurs are only for boys, which, look, my daughter is wearing dinosaurs, so I can tell you that this is not true. But the part about my book is not the thunderstorms or the dinosaurs. It's just facing a fear. It is facing a fear and seeing it through, and having a positive outcome on the other side. And so when I really started focusing on those facing fear keywords, that's when my book started to do much better on Amazon. The reason why I bring this up is because, fortunately and totally out of luck, I did have that face your fear sort of stance on my cover, that the way his body's positioned and his facial expressions. But if I hadn't just gotten lucky with that, then I would have really shot myself in the foot. So I think it's really important that you focus and do some research on which part of your book will actually sell. Where is the market? If you do something as simple as going on Amazon and saying, if there's books about thunderstorms, well, there are very few, and there's probably a good reason for it, because they don't sell if you do that. So anyway, there's always an angle. You got to find your angle before you start your cover, and that's all I wanted to communicate.
Very good point.
Did you guys want to add anything?
I'll just say the challenge is that, especially for books that are a little bit more niche, finding that niche, and whether that's communities that are involved with that, like Nikki, who you brought up earlier. She's got books dealing with neurodiversity and that kind of stuff, and so has a whole community that she's titled Sensory Stories, a Facebook page, and with thousands of followers now, and that's been successful for her. But her books are targeted in that regard, and I think by tapping into a community of people around those topics, she's been able to find her audience, and so that could be a big part of it too.
But this just all goes back to your cover has one job, and it's to sell your book. And if you can't figure out how to focus your cover to your proper audience, then you're going to miss your audience entirely.
Right.
And so that's why I thought it was really good. And you're excellent bringing up Nikki. She's done a really good job creating an audience that necessarily isn't there in one place. So anyway, so that is just that's probably one of the most important components of planning your cover.
And I'm thinking back to my first book where, Ada and the Helpers, the cover doesn't really give away anything about the story except for the main character and her cochlear implants, which is, front very close up on the cover. And that word helpers is kind of a double meaning. It's what she calls her hearing devices.
Hearing implants, yeah.
That's kind of what sells it, because that's the audience really that has been so attracted to that book. Yeah. Of course, it's for a much wider audience, but many people who buy the book are
have some sort of
parents and grandparents of kids that have these hearing devices. So
I
totally get that.
Yeah.
I've considered doing a book about diabetes or club feed or something like that, but I would imagine it's really hard to reach those markets.
Yeah.
I'll have to pick your brain one day, Travis, and how you managed to do that, because I think it's important that kids see themselves in children's books. But, at the end of the day, you have to find out how to do it. And I'm not very good at that part. So maybe one day. Anyway, I like see I have a talent for derailing conversations.
No, this is all feeding into what helps a book connect and sell, and it's part of the fact is there's just so many books. There's not a one size fits all for how to sell a book, and it really depends on the nature of the book and what topics it's addressing and how it's connecting, and so.
Hey, sorry, I think she has something.
Chase her down.
All right. I'll just flip through here again. We've touched on this a little bit, but whoops. Go back. So just emotion and feeling. I think we overlook this sometimes. We want to communicate an idea, but sometimes one of the biggest things is simply a mood, and whereas the second you look at a cover, you're kind of entranced by it and captured by it, and that emotional response is the most intuitive thing that a reader is going to experience. They're not going to stop and read your title and read your blurb and all that kind of stuff if the cover hasn't captured them. And so that immediate emotional response is key, and that really is more emotive. And there's a lot of ways that can be accomplished. And design and illustration is all part of that. And characters' expressions are huge. What kind of mood is the character in? What's that, Katie?
No, I was just reading in your color palette. I think we did a good job creating this PowerPoint. Other than the redundancy, I think that there's these. I remember when we were creating this PowerPoint, we were trying to figure out, as cover designers, what we kind of intuitively know how to see. And then somebody who's kind of new to this, what they wouldn't necessarily be able to put to mind. And
Right.
How can you communicate feelings is probably a good question that somebody new and trying to figure out how to communicate these things with cover. And so that's why we've identified these here: the color palette, the illustration, the scene, the background, the sky, the movement, and most importantly, the fonts.
Yeah. Fonts are overlooked, and we'll get to that. There's another page on that in a second, but just the font that you choose communicates immense amounts about what your book is about and the expected response from the reader. Readers intuit a lot from those little details that if we're not careful, we miss. So as terms of composition, one of the things, I'll just jump back to this, you'll hear me reiterate this just ad nauseum in our cover critique group. The title has to be first. The one thing you want the reader to walk away with is the title, and remembering the title, immediately putting that into their brain, and they may notice some of the other details. They make obviously the characters should capture their interest, that kind of thing, but you want them to walk away with the title. So if the title is small, if the title is not well composed, it's likely that they're not going to see it or remember it. And so the title has the first and most important element on your page. Single focal point, which is usually the characters, your primary scene. So you don't want too much detail. You want one primary focal point that is typically your main character, and that's what's drawing your eye. Natural Z shape. This is kind of the flow of the cover, where your eye starts at the top left, usually reads the title across horizontally, then kind of does a diagonal down to the middle of the page, or maybe the focal point that's in the center of the page, and then down to the bottom right, which leads into the book. And so one of the other things that we'll often encourage with cover design is that the momentum of the entire composition kind of leans to the right, which kind of leans into the book and encourages the reader to open the book.
One thing, decide where you open the book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not leaning it to the left toward the spine. It's pushing your eye toward the right and into
to open it.
Yeah.
It's a subconscious.
Katie is fantastic at this detail, adding movement. So rather
Yes,
than
she is.
having a kind of a picture that looks like a still life on the cover, just adding like wisps of wind or some motion lines or something like that that just gives a little sense of dynamicness to the illustration and to the cover.
I think of the Noodles book. That
I
has a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
movement in it.
Dynamicness.
Yes.
I
Yep.
don't think that's a real word.
Yeah, right. Dynamicness. Interactive title is something that Katie and I both love to do, where there is some interaction between the illustration and the title. So it's not like there's a picture and somebody put it in Word and type text on top of it, because that's a lot of covers look like that. But instead, there's actually some interaction between the title and the illustration. There's some overlap, or you're tucking the title behind a character's head, or something like that, where what it ends up doing is making it one composition. It creates a single composition instead of just an illustration with a.
It also creates depth.
Yes, it pushes your character to the foreground and a sense of depth. So less is more. This is something we'll harp on repeatedly. If there's elements that are capturing attention, if they're not important, get rid of them. You don't have to communicate everything here. In fact, you absolutely shouldn't try to. So, and then, as we said before, leading your eyes to the right. Anything you want to mention, Katie?
I was just thinking about the interactive title. You know who did that really well is Lizzie Simpson with her Gloomy Bambooni.
Yes.
That cover is perfection. But the Gloomy Bambooni title sits behind the Bamboon, who's sitting foreground, kind of thinking.
Yep.
Or maybe he's upset. Anyway, I remember the title, which is the goal, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, that just came to mind when you were reading.
It is. It's a really brilliant title, and you can still make out the word baboon, but yeah, it pushes the baboon himself right to the foreground.
And it makes the whole cover feel like it's like a 3D.
Yes, right. And then the cohesiveness is with just what we're kind of talking about there. One of the things that we'll often do is if I'm trying to choose colors for the title or for the author illustrator names or for any text, basically pulling those colors from the illustration itself, and those sorts of details can help make the entire cover feel more cohesive. Again, choosing fonts that are complementary to the illustration, because an illustration style can be very cartoony and have big curves. Well, you probably want a font that is similar, or it may be more brush stroke like, and in which case maybe you want more of a hand drawn font. And so there's definitely a sense of choosing a font that doesn't fight against your illustration, but complements it.
I know this is a really non-technical way of saying it, but I always think of it as I want everything to look like it was from one brain.
Okay.
One person did it, even though one person shouldn't do everything. It should look like one person did everything.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Title first.
Carry those things out.
That's right. Make sure those don't. All right. So
I can only talk about my book as this is the only book I was seeing through planning. So this was my original sketch, and I made sure I left plenty of room for the title on to the right. And I'm sure that we're going to go through all this. I think I circled everything. If you just click through, there you go.
Single focal point. Yep. Big title. Movement with the plan to add leaves, the wind, and even the rain that you've got adds
the grass.
Yep. The blowing the grass. The overall direction is to the right. Stormy sky. And one of the things I loved with this, Katie, is in the expression of your characters, there's a fear in their eyes, but yet the stance and the posture is brave. And so you were able to capture both of those simultaneously.
I worked really hard at that. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. No, I think it's brilliant.
I'm actually not an illustrator. I fake it. The illustrations are a struggle for me. So that part was a challenge, but that's what I was going for. So thank you.
Oh,
And I hope
I think you can.
you guys are
I
my
think you can officially call yourself an illustrator.
I
now,
think she
Katie.
can.
it's tough for me, really. And the other thing, I think, I don't know if I actually did this, but the Z, you're kind of like going to the, across the top. Oh, there's the title. Anyway, I don't think I didn't, but there's like a natural Z shape because my name ends up at the very bottom. So you have the title, and then you go back to the character, and then to the bottom, and then to the opening of the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then Clay hated the dinosaur tail at first.
I gave her a hard time about it. I'm like, I don't understand why this dinosaur tail. Why do you have a dinosaur tail?
He said it's distracting, and I said I want it to be.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and then yeah. So,
Yeah.
so here's
It's a fantastic cover.
yeah, Michael Wong's cover is fantastic. Both of
It
his
is,
books,
yeah.
both of his new books especially. But yeah, again, it's simple. There's a very clear focal point. There's motion. There's mood. There's a big clear title. There's a general Z kind of shape.
I think if you click through.
Huh?
I think if you click through it, it's all drawn on there.
Oh, there you go. So there's
Oh,
your
yeah.
saying it. So yeah, movement of the see the little dandelion seeds, and then movement towards the opening. Yep. So, yep, good stuff here. You feel joy, peaceful color. Yeah, the color palette really leads into that. So the environment is very pastel-y, and then your characters are more brightly colored, so they kind of stand out against the background here, and so that's very intentional.
Yeah.
All of my stupid notes.
Oh, I love this page actually because yeah,
I
this
just
is-
talking about all my notes, and they look happy.
yeah, right. So you can have a title like The Kids at the Carnival, and it looks happy, and you're probably, what would you expect from a book like this? Maybe something circusy or playful.
Yeah.
And then if you change it and use the same words, but look like you have stalker slasher.
The kids have taken over here.
Yeah, all of a sudden it becomes a horror movie.
Honestly, this is just sidewalk talk to me.
Yeah, right. This is kind of like the importance of punctuation. Let's eat grandma, comma grandma, or let's eat grandma, and so punctuation saves lives.
Way to make that weird, Clay.
Yeah, I know, right?
And you say that I have to tell him for that.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Um,
But anyway, this is where fonts are not neutral at all, and fonts, very much contribute to the telling of the story and what mood setting the mood, and not only for the title but for the interior text as well. Can really set a mood of something more formal or more casual. And can match with the illustrations or kind of fight against them. So, anything you want to say, Katie? Sorry, I'm kind of.
No, I love the creeper vibe. The kids in the creeper.
I know.
I kind of want to write that first one.
Yeah, right.
You can also tell really quickly when the fonts are an afterthought. When there really hasn't been any intention or any thought put into what it should look like or how it should be treated or anything.
Or when the illustrator doesn't leave any room at all, and you kind of have to.
Yeah.
You can tell that.
And this is where I still see people with regularity pull out Comic Sans and use it for their title. And Comic Sans, unfortunately, it got a bad reputation. It's not really an objectively bad font, but because it was installed on every Windows computer since like Windows 3.1 or something like that, it's like the only kid-friendly font that's on there. So anytime somebody wants a kid-friendly font, they pull that one out rather than going to look for actual good fonts.
I actually really strongly prefer Papyrus.
Yes, Papyrus too. and those are fonts, the reason they've got a bad reputation is not because they're bad fonts in themselves, but because they are they've been misused so many times. And so that's where, again, an experienced designer can help.
I'm gonna change my font in our emails to Papyrus just for you today.
We on April Fool's Day a few years ago at my company, for our internal content management system, we changed the CSS so that all of the fonts on the page were Papyrus for all of our editors, and
That's awesome.
and that was pretty fun. They hated us, but yeah, it was fun.
That's hilarious. Okay.
So font pairing, a lot of times you will typically have two fonts, one that has personality, that's often your title font, something has personality or texture, and then a simpler font, whether that's sans serif or serif font, maybe from the same family, but just a lot simpler.
I'm very sophisticated when I call it fancy.
Yeah, right.
My extensive vocabulary. Oh, and look, font 1 plus font 2 equals 4.
Is love.
Yes. This is so corny. We need to redo this. Oh god.
It's still there's still a lot of good stuff in here, and
Yeah.
so just we don't have to spend too much time on this, but avoid overusing effects. Really, if people can notice your effects, like a drop shadow or like an emboss feel or something like that, it's probably too much. If it's subtle and kind of adds to the clarity of the title, then it's good. But usually, as soon as you can notice an effect, it's too much. So
I agree. I wish I had an example of that without having to call somebody out. But
right.
it's usually 1 or 2 max. But I've seen them with like 7.
Yes.
Effects.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yes. Now,
I feel like
with that 1 to 2, maybe 3 fonts, would you include like the copyright page and all the like
personally,
small text?
I personally, yes. I try to if I'm going to use 2 different titles on the cover, I'm either going to pull one of those fonts inside the book, or I'm going to have a third font for inside the book that doesn't clash with those 2.
Yeah.
I think it can get too busy.
Yeah. What I've done is for like the copyright page and the blurb on the back, I've actually chosen a serif font that's a little bit more formal, I guess you'd say, a little bit more professional. That is a different font from the actual text of the book, the interior text, which is more handwritten.
Well, I always do the same one.
So I ended up with 3. But yeah, you can do it both ways. It can work both ways. Just as
Thanks.
Anything else there? Sorry, Katie.
No. I just wanted to point out that everyone knows for certain now that you're nicer than me.
Oh, no, that was obvious. Yeah, so.
It's never up for question, I know.
When should you add a book designer to your team?
Always.
There is. Wait, what is a book designer? Well, Travis, you're
Is
a
that
book
the answer?
designer. Yeah, Travis, you're an expert here. What is the answer? How would you answer this question?
Well, for me personally, designing print publications is my specialty. It's what I've pretty much done ever since I left college. And whereas you, Clay, I believe you're more into web design and logo design, and so we each kind of have our own niche that we excel at. And so I am not an illustrator. Clay, you said you were not an illustrator. Katie said that too, but I don't believe her. We hired someone else to do that because that's not our specialty. We are designers, and that's what we focused on.
Yeah.
So that would be my take on it.
Yep. Katie, thoughts?
A book designer is someone who brings in your illustrations, your title, and marries the two for a cohesive end product that looks like it was from one brain. And your book designer is also doing things like designing the interior and providing final files. So it's not enough to just know how to design a pretty book. Your book designer also needs to be able to give you files that you can hand directly to your printer or upload directly to your POD printers. But really, what your book designer is doing is creating a final cohesive composition so that it's print ready. They're marrying the two. I don't know. I forget how I defined this in the PowerPoint, but I think I did.
Book designer complements both manuscript and illustrations with a design and layout that pulls them together into a cohesive.
How was your definition?
That was much more definitive than what I said. That was a good answer.
Well, one of the things that I think is overlooked,
Travis.
one of the things that I think is overlooked with book design is that, especially with children's books, picture books, is that the designer actually makes the book more readable. Like it can actually enhance the placement of the text, the size of the text, the font choice, all of those things can actually make the book easier to read, especially if it's in rhyme, laying out the stanzas, that kind of thing. There's a bit of an art to that, and not just slapping it on the page. And so I think there's a role there, and again, it pulls it into and makes it cohesive, but it also makes it even easier to read. A strong design. So
I have a confession.
Yeah.
When I was first working on Cindy Grant's book, like I said, I had never done a book before. It was the first book I illustrated, the first book I designed, the first cover I designed. I have this until proven otherwise, I can do whatever I want and anything I try. Mental,
mindset.
Yeah. It's a defect for sure. But I was putting all the text on the page, and I sent it to Jay Maletsky, and I was like, bro, what do you think? Be honest with me. Should I let this woman go to print with these illustrations? And he said, the illustrations are fine, but your text is way too boring. Your illustration or your text should add to the page. And I don't know why I never thought about that before. And it was like a light bulb. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
And so at that point, I took all the text off, and I became a book designer in that moment because Jay Maletsky led me down that path.
Good for Jay.
I don't know why that thought never occurred to me. I was literally putting it on there as plain text before that.
Yeah.
So Jay is to blame for this horrible webinar.
But good for him.
I'm just kidding.
He probably wouldn't call himself a pro designer, but he's got a good design sense, and
Yes.
definitely.
Actually, I was for reasons related to my bookstore. I was on Amazon looking for Jay's titles because I wanted to know the cover price for his new word book. And believe it or not, Jay authored a book about Photoshop and marketing with using Photoshop.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
I had no, yeah. But yes, he's very talented designer actually.
In his previous life.
He doesn't I don't think he does that much for other people, if at all.
Yeah.
What do you have in your mouth?
Most of the stuff that he does, any of the promotional materials that he does for his books or his companies, is all him, I believe. So
yeah, very cool.
So
He's a talented dude.
Yeah. So the answer to this is, I think we would all say, the three of us here who are all designers would say, try to involve somebody. If you're going to hire a book designer, get them involved early in the process. As you're starting to work with the illustrator, because if you do have somebody separate doing illustration and design, that's a complement. Those are complementary roles that have to be able to work together. And so
this goes on and on. Remember, that's the page I was remembering. Okay. Yes. This is, I don't know if you run into this situation often, Clay, but a lot of times with my book design clients, my clients genuinely have no idea where the roles cross over, whose roles which one. And so that's why we created this page, is so that hopefully we can kind of clear that up, because a lot of times as a book designer, people expect me to also be an illustrator, but most book designers are not also illustrators. And so while I'm able to kind of fudge things in some places, it's hard for me that people kind of want me to fulfill two roles.
Yeah.
And it ends up costing me a lot of time that I hadn't really necessarily committed to. So that's selfishly why I put this in. I told you Clay is a nicer person than I am. So
It's true.
shot of this, that is true. It really is. I use Clay's critiques in the critique group to try and frame mine more nicely, and it still comes off as like, virtual RBF. Anyway, so this is a good reference if you want to take a screenshot of it. To try and in your mind, kind of break down rules. It's very rare that an illustrator has the design skills to fulfill both of those roles. Yep. So unless you can see your illustrator's previous book designs where they're doing the cover, laying text and choosing fonts, I would not try and fit them into that role just to save some money. Your book design really is an important part of your book process as much as your manuscript and your illustrations are. I believe that strongly.
I do too.
Yeah. So this is a good reference for anybody who wants to take a screenshot of it.
One of the best indicators of a self-published book is poor design, and even more so than poor illustrations, because a lot of times a self-published author will hire a decent illustrator, but then piece it together in Word or Canva or something like that, and try to slap together a book rather than hire a skilled illustrator or a skilled designer. And so
it's heartbreaking, honestly, because there's a lot of really great books that have fantastic illustrations and a good story that I personally, as a buyer now with a bookstore, I wouldn't consider them because they don't have good covers. Right. They don't have good design, and it's really the whole picture. And so you're shooting yourself in the foot and selling your book short by not, I don't know what's the best way to put it, but finishing that race, at full speed or whatever.
Yeah.
My analogy is really bad.
Yep, but not skimping, not cutting corners as you get further into it. But
there you go. See, I need you. Help make sense of my brain.
Melding of the brains. I don't know if we probably can skip past this unless you wanted to touch on this.
No, that's okay. I get really worked up about this topic. So
this is more on the illustration side, and we can show this on the screen for you if you'd like.
We put this in here initially because as designers, I often receive illustrations that were done in RGB, and then the designer is the bad guy then when we have to submit it or convert it to CMYK, which is the print colors. And then the client's really upset. Like it was, like it was something that we did wrong. When really the illustration should have been created in the proper colors, and they weren't. And so I put this in here just to educate people, hopefully, at the front end of their book publishing journey, so that they can make sure that their illustrations are done properly. So take a screenshot of this. Yeah. So that way there's no surprises. The colors that you see throughout the illustration process are the colors that will be printed later on. If they're done in CMYK, that will be the case. And if they're done in RGB, you're going to be sad. Yep. If you look at the this image here with the two colors compared, color comparison, you can see that the CMYK colors are pretty limited compared to RGB. You're not really going to get those bright colors unless you pick them yourself. If at one Photoshop or whatever program we're using converts them in the program, but you're often left with much more dull colors. And, you've already fallen in love with those bright RGB colors. So just save yourself the heartache and make sure your illustrator does CMYK.
Yep.
Are you proud of me? I got that down in like a second.
I'm impressed.
Okay.
All right, so we won't belabor that one. What does designer need to do for your cover? So formats. So we've talked about this a little bit. Files generating, whether there's going to be a cover template, interior files, dust jacket, perhaps. How does the printer want to receive the files? It's usually PDF, but there's going to be some specifications there, and trim and bleed and all of these things. That's why at least working with a designer is going to be critical to make sure that those details are captured and dealt with.
Can I add also knowing how you're going to print your book and who your printer is before you get started is important.
Yes.
Also,
Yes.
your illustrator as well as your designer.
Yep.
And I would say the biggest one that sticks out to me on this list is the very last one, the bleed.
The bleed.
Oh God.
Many illustrators have no concept of bleed,
Yeah.
or they do, and they don't know what the bleed should be based on what printer you're choosing and all of that. So
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
good rule of thumb is, 0.125 inches extra on all sides.
It's
You know,
what it is,
That's pretty standard bleed for most printers. I mean, some will want a little more or a little less, but we can budget from there if you have at least a little bit.
mhm.
Do you guys agree
And then
with
a hardcover needs much more bleed than
Right.
a paperback.
the cover? Yes, the cover. Yes.
Yeah.
I was talking about the interior.
The interior, yeah.
For the hardcover, I always tell people to illustrate 1 inch outside of this. So if it's a 9x9 cover, have them illustrate a 10x10 unless we have the cover template, and you can illustrate to that exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I would. Travis, I assume you probably do something
Yeah, I
similar.
think 1 inch is pretty safe.
Yeah, right.
And then if you're doing all one image for the front, back, and spine, then you
Right.
have to know how thick the spine's going to be and all that as well.
Yeah, there's lots of factors that play
Yeah.
into all that. Yeah. Good. These were just some covers that we've picked out, just ones that we've liked. We can touch on this just a little bit, but this was one that came out last year that just immediately caught my attention, and it's Mood. Obviously, there's a beautiful scene going on, but you also have a young girl looking wistfully out the window, everything packed up like she's moving across the country with her grandma, and it was like, what's going on here? And so there was really a sense of curiosity, and it is a beautiful book interior, the story as well. So this is one I picked
You
up.
bought this. I remember when we talked about this initially, you bought this book without even opening it up.
Just had no idea what it's about, but I just like I saw that cover, I'm like, I'm going to get that book.
Yeah, it captivates you, and I have to agree. And I have to say that it also has that same. It generates the same feelings that your cover generates for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same illustration style, same mood. Not necessarily the same colors, but it's the same mood still.
It's a mood, yeah, right.
In the cover critique group, I often see you say that the characters need to be much larger. So what's the argument with this one?
That's a good question, Travis. Because the characters would get lost in a thumbnail size of this one, and
I would say that for this book, the characters aren't necessarily the main focal point. I think it's the beautiful things, all encompassing.
Yeah.
The
The
nature,
environment.
scenery. The road trip feeling that everybody gets. When you're embarking on a new road trip, you have excitement, you have sentimental value there.
expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the characters here are almost a secondary reaction. Like you're just kind of taken by the beauty of the scene, and then as you zoom in on the characters, you get that secondary reaction of, oh, what's going on, and why are they traveling, and where are they going? And so it's kind of both things. It is that mood, but it's also the piquing curiosity and interest.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter is all wrapped up in the sound machine. Sorry, Mother of the Year here today.
We don't need to belabor all of these either, because we got a bunch of them here. But
Okay.
just looking at other covers and asking ourselves, why do certain books do so well, and how much of that has to do with the cover.
I don't agree with you on this cover. I hate this cover.
Yeah, well, skip it. So
This one's amazing, though.
yeah, this one's interesting. I'm curious how this connects with kids. It's certainly a more artful cover and beautiful work.
The kids are the buyer. That's what I keep coming back to. I mean, I buy books that I'm attracted to for my kids. My kids
Yeah.
are really the ones that pick out their books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they are, they pick something that I would never pick up on.
Right.
That's awesome.
This is an understated book, and I think I might do the title a little differently, but I think it's just kind of interesting because it encapsulates the purpose of the book, the feel of the book, with those muted tones.
Mhm.
This is another one that would, it's really setting a sense of strength. The people joining hands in the background indicate, community and
Mhm.
standing around the young girl, and so I think there's a lot of.
How about the placement of the title? I know, a lot of people say it should be up at the top third of the book.
I don't
Obviously, every rule can be broken, right?
Sure. Yeah. If you know why and do it appropriately. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the reason why there's a rule for that is for those, in bookstores when you have the magazine wrap type of things.
Hmm.
I don't know what they're called.
When they're stacked in front of each other.
Yeah.
And,
Right. You want to be able to read the title from afar without seeing the whole thing. I don't buy into that. I think most people are buying books digitally. I think that they're looking, if they're not forward facing on a Barnes and Noble bookshelf or Target or whatever, you're reading the spine anyway.
Mhm.
I think it's rare that those are in that exact situation that you should
Yeah.
just have the cover for the book and not for the 1% chance that it might be found in one of those bookcases.
I think it definitely applies for magazines, like you said, the magazine rack, but I don't know so much for children's books. I don't know that I've ever seen them stacked.
I think that
like
that's
that.
like a very old way of thinking. I don't think that
Yeah.
people buy books that way anymore.
Mhm.
Part of it, I think, is just the sense that the title is the most important design element, and so putting it at the bottom feels like you're demoting it.
Yeah.
Where as long as it's strong enough and big enough as it is here, that you still, it's quite clear.
Mhm.
It's your title, and it also, this goes back to Katie, your point about making it look like it was created by one brain, where you have the flow of the water like this. Maybe this title was even painted into the illustration by the illustrator. We don't know, but it does have a feel of connection to the illustration, of course, with the curve.
The T's are different, and that does
They
not.
are, so it looks
It's not
hand
always
drawn.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the movement. I love her fierceness.
Mhm.
I love how the everything is going towards the book opening.
Yeah.
Including her hair. Everything has some subtle. I mean, she looks like a badass.
Yeah, she does.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
the motion of the hair in the water, it gives it a dynamicness.
Yep.
Yeah.
I dig it. Sorry, I fouled up your webinar here, Travis, with my bad language.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. Yeah. But it's a good place of the Caldecott sticker as well.
Yeah, right. Here's one where there's some motion and some again a sense that it's the title are interacting and connected.
This is why people don't bring their kids to work. I dig this cover. I love this cover.
I love this cover. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I also think there needs to be more representation in general,
Mhm.
and I think that this just it embodies so much, and not just with the fantastic cover placement and composition and all of it, but the colors, the mood, like I don't know. I love it. It really is very 2022, where everyone's really wanting, more change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there that kind of triggers for me. And it's all subconscious, of course. Hey, you. Come here.
Yep. One of the things I hadn't noticed about this cover before is how the guitar looks so oversized in her hands, and the goal is to make you realize that she's a small young girl, and that change comes from the youngest of us, or can come from the youngest. And so I think
and it almost looks like she's handing it to you.
Yeah,
in a
yes,
way.
that's true too. It's almost like you can be a part of this too. You can join in, play along, sing along.
I love this game. This interpreting covers.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times there are details like that make it work, that you can't even, until you stop and think about it, you can't even identify what it is that makes it work so well. But yeah. This is a cover I absolutely hate for a book that has been one of the bestseller for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But I think there is part of it that works. That it has a very distinct and unique style to it. It's kind of unlike a lot of other stuff. Very simple and geometric.
Straight to the point.
Yep.
Fun fact: there's a wedding planning firm in DC called Chicka Chicka Boom Boom.
Is it really? That's great.
Yeah, and they're such mean girls. Sorry, unrelated.
But again, the title is strong. The colors are strong. It leaves an impression on you, and so there's interestingly, there's a lack of characters on here. So,
and I have no idea what the story is about.
Right.
No clue.
I'm not sure if this book was released today. I'm not sure if it would take off the way it has. I think it might struggle in today's market a little bit more, but it certainly has become a classic and identifiable. This to me is brilliant simplicity. I've always loved Mo Willems books to begin with, but his drawings are full of personality, even though they're just line drawings, sketches, and a cover like this, just bold, in your face, huge title, great, and it's a title. This is your title. Your book kind of borrows from this. Never build a blanket for it. Don't let the pigeon drive the bus. It's that reverse psychology. I think works well. Night Moon. This is another one that I think is an ugly cover, but it's a classic book. We put some of these in here specifically to kind of critique like what works but what doesn't work. And again, this book is beloved for a lot of reasons, but I'm not sure this strangely composed cover is one of them. But
and they're horrible perspective inside too. All the drawings are so bizarre.
Yeah, and weird negative space in the middle here, and no characters again. Yeah, so it's fascinating. Grumpy Monkey. That's Gloomy Baboony kind of borrows from this one a little bit, but just the.
I mean, the designer in me wonders why they pick such a plain font, but it works.
Yeah. Focus is really on the monkey.
And he's certainly grumpy.
Such a great story too.
Yeah. My daughter, come here, Grumpy Monkey.
So before you start on this one, Chris Van Dusen. Right. I actually reached out to him yesterday about possibly endorsing Never Ever Build a Blanket Fort. So I'm hoping, I have my fingers crossed. He did respond and say he would read it. So I sent him
good.
PDF.
Cool.
So I hope he likes it.
So Clay, do you want to open up some Q&A?
We can, yeah. We don't have to go through it. I'll say one more thing. Chris Van Dusen, he has a book that just released today. I got an email in my inbox this morning because I follow him on Amazon, and he's got a new book about a truck. And actually, I saw it. I'm like, I don't really like that cover. And usually, I'm really in love with his covers. So we could.
I have never heard of that guy.
Oh, he does some. Oh, these. If I built a car and if I built a house, is it?
Honestly, I'm so ignorant with so many things.
I've never heard of him either. Somebody mentioned that my new book kind of follows the same genre, I guess, as his. So that's the only reason I heard about it. But,
yeah, he's been a favorite of ours family for quite a while. We've got several of his.
I want to bring this back to why we're here. obviously Clay and I hope that you have gotten some value out of this. We want to open up to Q&A, but really ultimately we want to say thank you to Travis for having us. And this is all comes back to Travis's Kickstarter. So if you have enjoyed this, if you have found it valuable, we hope that you'll support Clay or Travis. Travis's Kickstarter, or his new book, Never Build a Blanket Fort. I also want to up the ante that for any donation over $25, I will not only include my book signed, but I'll also include Cindy's first book, Oodles and Oodles and Noodly Noodles, signed by her and I, as well as her new book whenever it's done. I'm finishing up the cover right now. The inside is, so it'll be soon, next 5 or 6 months. We'll have that in hand. So I'll send an announcement of her book to whoever wins. Anybody over 25 will be entered to win all 3 from me.
Thank you so much, Katie.
I'll throw in my other book, my first book too. So you'll get 5 books in there.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll even throw in mine.
There we go.
8 helpers. I really appreciate that. And I did want to just mention that again, that whoever is registered for this event here, if you go into my Kickstarter, I forget when it's running through May 16th. And if you back, then you get all these books that we just listed, not the ones pictured, but the ones that Katie and Clay have worked on.
I have another idea.
One winner for everyone.
I'm going to make this really crazy. Anybody who donates over $100, I will buy 10 units of your book from my bookstore at wholesale price.
Oh,
Right
wow.
on the shelves. Anybody who does over 100. That you have to enter to win there. I will buy 10 units of your book if you support Travis with over $100.
You all heard it here, folks.
All right.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And you thanked me, but really, I am so grateful to have Katie and Clay here. You guys are fantastic. I really wanted to pull in some of the champions of self-publishing children's books, and I really see both of you as that, even though Katie says she's not an illustrator. You guys are awesome, and I really respect your work.
Thank you.
thanks, Travis. Great to meet you.
Honestly, what you did with Stacy's series is amazing.
Thank you. That's a really fun series.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anybody got any questions for us? Can we hear?
Nothing is up. I do have a few final questions for you guys.
Okay.
Nobody has gone into YouTube. If you are watching, there are a few people watching. If you're on my website, just click on YouTube and watch it directly. You'll be able to leave comments below, and then they will show up on my screen here. So you can't do it directly on my website, but go into YouTube to do that. But just real quick before we close up here, and if there are any more questions, I'll ask those as well. But first of all, YouTube, you said you're not really taking any clients now. Is that fully with every service, or are there any services that you're offering right now? Nothing right now.
Probably not. I'm doing an occasional logo here or there because those go pretty quick. Doing a full book design, I've done some consultations. So that would be one thing I'd open up if there are people that would like to pay for a more in-depth consultation on cover design or interior design. I'm willing to do that. But yeah, don't have the space in my schedule currently to take on full projects.
I've got to bring up Cindy's book. I'm moving into our house we've been building for 14 months in a week, and then I'm moving into another store a week after that. I'm just totally maxed out right now.
Yeah.
But my plan is that once we're set on our house, to start taking client work again in a couple of months. I'm just unable to do it right now. I generally like overflowing my plate, but right now it's a little bit more than even I like it to be. Clay and I have something up our sleeves too that we're working on. So we can't share about that, but that's another thing that we have on our calendars right now.
Yeah.
No sneak peeks, no secrets, nothing.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
I thought I would torture everybody with that.
There you go. Yeah. Just keep tuned. Stay tuned.
Keep tuned. Yeah.
Keep tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I've got, as I said, I guess I commented to you, Travis, earlier. I've got a Christmas book that's coming out this year. That's kind of in the same vein as this, I know. So that's my next one, but I've got 6 different books in various phases of development right now.
That's
2 of them
amazing.
currently in illustration, and the other 4 that I'm continuing to refine the manuscript. So anyway, I'm trying to focus on that because I really want to make sure I'm moving ahead with that. It's hard to find the time to work on our own projects.
I mean, you only have a full-time job to work.
Yeah, and then that. Right. Yeah.
I have Siri remind me to message Katie Weaver every now and then.
That's right. You haven't caught up with Katie recently. It's so funny.
No.
Go ahead.
Are you taking new work? It's always nice to know who has time.
Yeah, I am taking on new work, but I'm usually working a few months out. So right now I'm scheduling for the second half of this year,
Okay.
Which really works because I like to be hired along sort of in tandem with the illustrator as we've talked.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking for an illustrator, if you're kind of nearing the end of your editing phase, that's a good time to hire a designer in tandem with the illustrator. So I'm scheduling second half of this year, and that's mainly because of this Kickstarter that's happening now. And my parents are coming to Norway for the very first time. We've been living here for 5 years, so I'm really excited about that. They'll be here actually near the tail end of my Kickstarter for a few weeks, and then we're hoping to go back to the U.S. in July. So it's going to be a busy few months.
Let's get Travis funded so that he can hang out with his parents. He hasn't seen in 5 years, guys.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'm not disappointed the whole time they're here. No, it's going to be a good time no matter what happens with the Kickstarter. I'm so excited that they are finally coming. And it's been like over 2.5 years since we've even seen them because of COVID.
And such, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question. What was your favorite book as a kid?
Richard Scarry, Cars and Trucks and Things That Go. I spent hours with that book. Love that one.
I've got it downstairs.
Yep.
You guys read when you were little?
Huh?
You guys read? What good students do.
No,
The
I
only
still don't read.
I very vividly remember not being able to put down the Goosebumps series. I read all of them.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I was a terrible student. I've learned, I've self-diagnosed myself at age 36 that I have ADD really bad. And I think that contributed to it. But honestly, I was a terrible student. So Goosebumps is my very lame answer to your question, Travis. I do read to my kids, though. Right?
Yeah.
I will say the only one that I really remember as a kid was Corduroy.
Oh, I love that.
That's the one that kind of stands out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the last book you read to your kids?
This morning, construction site mission demolition. I love that one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It was 2 nights ago, but I can't remember what the book was now. I did read. Oh, whose did I read? Somebody. There's one of our authors that I read recently to our kids, and I was gonna message them afterwards, and I never got around to it. Oh.
The last time I read my kids your book, they fell asleep.
Yeah, same here.
Something about rainstorm and roaring.
Yeah, something I don't know. I fell asleep halfway through.
Yeah.
Thunderstorms put me to sleep.
It was unimaginative and dull.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God! If you didn't see me trolling Clay in that video, please tune into that. I posted it in the group. That was a month of work.
I still can't believe you did it. Oh my gosh.
Well, if you ever do another Kickstarter, Katie, I'm expecting to see that T-shirt with Clay sleeping with your book.
Right.
As an add-on.
Some merchandise.
You know that I made.
Yeah.
You just saw it.
Yeah.
Not very many people. Not very many people saw it. I was disappointed by that. There was a lot of effort.
Oh man.
Yeah.
You're right. People saw it.
Anyway,
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate the.
Yeah, thank you guys. I know this probably went much longer than you expected, but I really appreciate you joining me with this and
Did we answer all?
support Katie and Clay. What's that?
I said, did we already answer all your questions?
Yeah, that's it.
All
That's
right.
it.
Well, thanks, Travis. It was nice hanging out with you guys. I mean, Clay. Anyway.
Likewise. Well,
Yeah.
put up with me.
Yeah, barely.
Once again, never ever build a blanket fort on Kickstarter. Now, if you're on my website, there should be a button right below the video to go straight to that Kickstarter. If not, you can search for it right there on Kickstarter. Never ever build a blanket fort. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. In 2 days, sorry, no, not in 2 days. Next Tuesday, I have Nikki Philippone and Robin Katz, a mother-daughter team of illustrators. That should be a fun night.
Rhyming experts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Insanely talented.
Yes.
Both of them immensely with meter writing. So definitely tune in for that one. And also definitely support our friend Travis's Kickstarter.
Yep.
Thank you.
And he did not
Right.
pay me to say that.
Great.
Really.
No payment here, although I do owe you guys.
It's fun seeing you. I'm gonna try to
Thanks.
put this baby down for a nap now because she's gone.
Yeah.
She's worn out.
Say bye.
All right.
Say bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Like, okay, are you mad that she stole the show? Be honest.
Yeah, it's worth it.
What a beautiful smile.
She picked,
What's her name? I didn't catch it.
her name is Adeline. Bye bye.
Hi, Addie.
Her name is Adeline, but we call her Addie.
Adeline. Yeah.
Say
Okay. Bye, Adeline. Bye, Addie. All right.
All right.
See you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
See you. Bye.